Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well, and today we're talking about the new lockdown that's come on the UK and everything like that, what major factors that might have right now and going forward, because there's a few red flags that we're going to talk about as well. And we're also, well, the main reason we're here is we're going to start talking about why or what could cause a stock market crash, if this news could, or if any future news could cause a UK stock market crash. And surprisingly, there's a few things that I think are being missed. I've seen no one else on the YouTube scene actually covering these little red flags that are starting to appear, and I'll talk about them. But yeah, we'll get stuck into it. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is it's quite funny because we know it was such a weird scenario that we was in, because I've seen so many funny photos on Twitter about this situation, and we kind of knew it was coming for a few weeks. We knew that the cases were getting more and more, and the thing that I only really spotted the other day was how bad it is compared to where we first locked down in March. Like, the amount of cases are nearly like 10x what there were in March, and we had a shutdown or a lockdown. And I was like, well, how long are we going to go for this to happen? And it was such a weird thing because, you know, we were getting there and we were like, oh, we hear more about tier 4 and maybe a tier 5. We heard about, you know, schools maybe being shut down in London but nowhere else because they're still safe. And then next thing you know, we have a complete U-turn the next day. And yeah, I mean, it was quite funny seeing all the reactions on Twitter. And I'm not going to get too political on it, but I've got to say, it could have been a lot better organised. But hey, we've had a good laugh of it on Twitter anyway. But yeah, we'll get stuck into everything else of it. So yeah, we'll be talking about the actual lockdown situation, where the market is at, and obviously the future red flags. So first of all, I think the news of a lockdown was pretty much predicted by a lot of us. I think it was, you know, we knew at some point, unfortunately, the cases were rising quicker once these vaccines can come out. But realistically, when we looked at the stock market yesterday, that is the day it had the red news, or the red day off the news. And today, when we actually started to get the lockdown kicking in, I had a few messages last night on like Instagram. By the way, my Instagram's in the link in the description if you do want to follow me on there. But I had a few people on Instagram saying, what do you think the stock market's going to do? What's the plan of buying stuff tomorrow? Because, you know, trying to think that a red day was going to happen. And you look at the stock market today, and it's actually green. And a few people were like, well, why is it green on this sort of news? And the thing is the big thing at the moment is that when you hear the rumour, that is tend to what happens when the stock market actually moves off the news. When the actual news happens, the stock market already prices that action in. And that's what the stock market tends to do. So another rumour, for example, was that Alibaba was going to get investigated. Because the rumour that Alibaba was going to get investigated, the stock went down. But nothing's changed with the company. Now, when the news actually comes out, the stock will probably not move off it because it's all priced into the stock. So that's how the stocks tend to react. You know, when there is the rumour, they normally price that in. So that's when the news actually comes out, they don't hardly change. And that's something that we had yesterday in the UK stock market. You know, the stock market, we heard the rumours. Well, first of all, in a typical fashion, Scotland were going to announce that there were going to be a lockdown. And then it was like, well, that's Boris Johnson's probably going to follow in 2 days' time. And then it was kind of like the stock market reacted to it. And then when the news actually happened, it wasn't too bothered. But I think the other thing as well, considering with lockdown, is that the stock market has hardly dropped. I mean, we only dropped a couple, maybe 1-2%. And I think people were kind of thinking, well, is this lockdown going to move it 5-10%? And I think while there's the uncertainty there, I can't see us moving up too much. So I think it will be a bit of a stagnant market for a little bit until we realise how far we are coming out of this lockdown, and also how much this vaccine ramps up. I think they are the key things. I think everyone's just going to, you know, watching on the sideline right now, and that will probably be the next things to move it. So yeah, I mean, everything like that was pretty much priced in. Considering that, I did actually, I bought 2 stocks today in the UK front, and I sold it, well, a little bit of a UK stock as well. So we'll see. I might bring it out in a few days' time. So if you do want to see when I'm buying and selling stocks, make sure you join my Patients group. As well, if you do want to start buying some shares, there's a link to a free trade account in the description, and you get a free share when you do. But I guess the next thing is, like, where is the market going to go? Because we've looked and there's not that much priced in, and everything where the stock market goes, the stock market tends to think 3 months ahead. So it's now thinking about what scenarios are actually going to move the stock market in the next, 3 months, really. So the big thing next is obviously the vaccine rollout. And the big thing with the stock side of it, no one really wants to sell the stocks at the moment, because they're thinking, well, if the vaccine rollout is starting to happen and normality is only 1, 2, 3 months away, or starting to get to normality, then investors are starting to think like, why am I going to sell any shares? Or my amazing averages in companies, because we know that the end is near. There's a target in sight now, and investors are thinking we can see there's a target. You take the vaccine, say if we didn't have a vaccine, we would be in a totally different scenario right now. But because we see the vaccine, all investors are thinking about 3 months ahead, and that's what the stock market does. So yeah, I mean, the big thing really for investors is planned on this, the vaccine. The vaccine news is bigger than the lockdown news. Now, there's two problems here that I'm seeing that could cause red flags in the stock market. And these two things they could be the things that cause a stock market crash. And these are the two important things for me that you need to be keeping an eye on. And like I say, the vaccine news, because all investors are focused on that. Now, I think at the moment, the lockdown is forecast to go to about February, mid-February. I think, judging on how high cases we are compared to last time and the drop needed, we will be looking to March time. I think the lockdown will get extended, so you might see a little bit, when that extension happens, you might see the stock market rock a little bit. But the next thing for me is the vaccine rollout. So all investors at the moment are planning some normality vaccine rollout by March, and that's what the government's planning as well. They are planning for a vaccine rollout in March time, and then we see some normality. The problem comes is this: at the moment, the vaccine, I believe what I've last heard, is behind schedule, and that could affect stock market. And I believe that for everyone to get a vaccine is still a year off, and that's a big problem. So it depends if the vaccine target can reach the potential and everyone gets vaccinated, the stock market should be fine. The next big thing is if we get a delay, and I think the last thing I heard about it is that it is falling behind schedule, and then that will cause a problem because that then knocks on how far we go. And if that site goes from being like the major tiers that gets vaccinated gets delayed, that could cause a little bit of a turbulence. So the big news that as investors we need to be looking at is the vaccine news. We need to see when we see this taking effect, and that will be the next thing that moves the stock market. If it gets ahead of schedule, you'll see a bump in the share price. If it starts falling behind, that's when you'll see people get a little bit nervous. And the next bit of news, which is probably more important than the actual vaccine rollout, is I believe it's South Africa. I might have got it wrong, but I believe in South Africa right now there's another variant of the coronavirus out there. So obviously we heard about the UK one, which is causing it to spread quicker. And I was quite surprised the other day when I heard like it's spreading something like 70% quicker. I was like, that's actually a lot, and that's quite alarming. So it's a good job we had a vaccine, otherwise the stocks would have hated that news. But the next thing is there's a new variant, and I've heard this is the South Africa one. And if this variant is not treated by the vaccine, that is the catalyst for this. If that is true, this will happen. I'm 100% sure on it, because then you have to develop another vaccine, and then after developing the vaccine, you have to go through the trials, and that's about another year. And if you get to that point in a year's time where that happens, we will go through a bit of a March scenario again. Maybe not as much, but it will definitely, we are talking this word, that will happen if it is true. If it is, the variant has changed where the vaccine doesn't deal with it, that will be causing major problems, and you will see dips in the stock market. And out of all the news that's happened recently, in my opinion, that is the one news article to keep an eye on right now, because that is a game changer out there if that does happen. So yeah, I mean, overall, taking everything into consideration, like the lockdown news is definitely priced in. The stock market hasn't moved, it will not move. The next big step is the vaccine and making sure that stays on target. The big thing is if that starts getting delayed, which it looks like it could do, that's one thing to keep an eye on. And the next thing is the new variant, and that is probably the most important one for you guys to keep an eye on right now, because that will be the game changer, not just on the UK front, the US stock front as well. So yeah, overall, hopefully that cleared you where to be at the moment. It's definitely interesting, well, not interesting, but it's definitely cautious to be what's going on. And at the moment, the news that we have is fine, and we'll deal with that. The vaccine news, same again, that might be what causes a 5% dip in the stock market if that is slower than anticipated. But definitely the new variant that is coming, that will be the one thing that you need to keep an eye on over the next few days. And it might just fizzle out in the background over the next few weeks, but if you do start to see more and more stories reporting this, that is probably the one thing you need to be cautious of. So yeah, that's where I'm at with everything. It's definitely a situation to watch, and hopefully it gave you some information on where everything's at right now. If you could, smash the like button. If you are new, subscribe, that'd be absolutely amazing. We've done 3 UK stock videos, I think, in a row now, which is very rare since we've done that one. But hopefully, I hope you enjoyed it. I know some of you guys have been messaging me about skills. I will try to do a video about that tomorrow. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.